Hey everybody, and welcome to the GameSpace Game Show, GS2 episode 16. And we have a, I don't know, what would you say, a far out episode? What do kids say these days? I don't know. But we have some.
It would be a lit episode.
It's lit? Well, actually, talking about lit, Bowman is having his own rave over there. I don't know what's going on.
Need a little bit.
But we have some exciting co-hosts today. Some of them you know. Some of them have only been here once, but that doesn't mean they're not the best co-hosts. We have Ed. Ed, how you doing?
I am alive. I had caffeine. Someone stole my caffeine. I demand more caffeine.
Pray to the caffeine gods.
And hopefully they will be appeased and send you
What
some.
is caffeinated will never die.
And we've got Dame here with us. Always a pleasure,
Hey.
Dame. And he's looking a little gray in his background there.
I am. I mean, I could look a little bit red or blue. That's just the pale glow of my secondary monitor and my PlayStation theme select screen for a little bit of extra light.
Still looks good though. And how are you doing this 420?
I am doing pretty good.
It sounded like you weren't sure.
Regardless, well, I was just trying to think like, okay, well, I mean, it's a Friday, so I'm doing pretty good. I like Fridays.
Yeah,
And-
just commit to that.
Good food.
Commit to it seemed like you were doing some introspection for like a few seconds there. You're like thinking, how am I doing today?
I had to take inventory before I answered.
And we have Bowman. How you doing there, Bowman? How's the rave right now?
It calmed down for a second. It might come back on.
Oh, it will on this 420. And I am your host, Steven. Did I mention
you know
that
what?
already? I don't think I introduced
I don't
myself.
think you did.
And you know what? It's probably going like that because it's 420. I'm trying to mess with people.
That's exactly what it is. And I think that's a good segue into what you can expect from this show, which this show, 420, 420 is a day that people celebrate. I would have to say they celebrate drugs. A particular one that I can think of. That's kind of the day to celebrate this. Everyone
Caffeine.
Well, I don't think that's the one. But, this show, we're going to be kind of going a different route because 420, you can experience psychedelic games without actually having to get high or get drunk or anything like that. These games that we're going to be talking about today are pretty... They're pretty. They're pretty out there, is what I was going to say. But some of them are pretty, depending on who you are. I mean, I know that we have General Jousting on the list, and Bowman was kind of wondering about that one. So, let's.
No, I was not.
The name says it all. I mean, we'll get into that, but
Yeah, absolutely. So, I wanted to start with some games that are a little trippy. I don't know if you guys have heard of any of these games, but we're going to start with a game called Jelly Mario. Do you guys know anything about this game?
I've watched some videos on it. But other than that, like I think I watched about like 30 seconds of a video and went, I know I can't sit here and watch this.
That's pretty much where I am with it. I have never touched this, but it's not something you really want to. It's not really something you want to get into at 3 a.m.
You start
Well,
questioning
not
your
without
life
the proper
decisions,
preparation.
Well, the interesting thing is I don't really know why this is a game at all, but it's pretty much if you've ever seen a game where you have like jelly bones, your character just kind of flops around. Think of Mario just kind of flopping around, and it's like the first Super Mario Brothers, and he's just flopping around, hitting everything. I've never actually seen him kill anything or you know, get one of those little question boxes or anything. He's just kind of flopping around on the screen. If you're listening to the podcast, you should definitely check out the video of this because it is ridiculous in all the right ways.
It's kind of like kind of like Mario without a skeletal structure in zero gravity. It's really what it is. Just hurling through the levels. And then just like the pipes flopping back and forth as he that's
one wonders why no one named it Mario's floppy pipes.
It's because he's free flopping.
And it doesn't seem like he can kill anything. It seems like you can't jump on their heads or anything like that. It's like if he touches anything, he just explodes into...
I was going to say, he just blew up on the turtle.
Yeah, just millions of little Mario pieces. So it's a ridiculous game, to say the least. But, you know...
Now I'm a guy that likes ragdoll physics in games, but physics be hanged when it comes to this.
Well, this is just I don't really think it's ragdoll physics. I think it's just like no physics at all, and they just kind of throw like a blob into like a blob that you control into a world of blobs, because everything that you hit just kind of moves and shakes on its own. There's no rhyme or reason to it. So I mean, it's a browser game, so if you've got some time to kill and you just want to be freaked out for a good while, I say go for it. And now, harkening back to the old Nintendo Entertainment System, how did you guys feel about Excite Bike?
Oh, I loved Excite Bike.
Yep.
I was always we were a Sega household. That's all I've got to say on that.
You know what? Dame shares that.
Road Rash 2.
There's no shame. There's no shame there, Ed. I mean, I was too, but I had neighbors that had a Nintendo, so it's like it was the best of both worlds.
Whoa! Wait, let's not push the boat out here. That assumes friendships were formed.
Hey, Ed, if you liked Road Rash 2, you know they made an updated version of that, right?
I remember Road Rash 64. I remember.
Oh no! They just made one it's on Steam.
Good for them. Road Rash was a good game.
Wow, that was a backhanded compliment right there. Good for them. Well
no,
done.
I actually liked Road Rash 64, but this game that we're talking about, it's very Excite Bike like. I'll say that 5 times fast, but it's called Rad Trails. It's currently in beta, and it is very Excite Bike-ish, but you're kind of going along like a psychedelic path, and the physics are very much what you would expect, a little bit ragdollish whenever you crash, but check it out. I mean, this is also a browser game, and you can kind of see him flying off his bike there and going into a roll. So
it kind of looks like he's in Tron.
Yeah, a little bit.
Did you guys ever play any of the Trials games for like on the iOS or Android?
On Xbox. They had a Trials game recently, pretty sure.
Yeah,
I did not
see it.
Those are the newer 3D, not the side scrollers like this.
Okay, because this very much reminds me of that same type of like flip the bike and flip
where
over the handlebars.
Yeah, his hands are attached to the handlebars and he flies over them, but his hands are still attached and his arms are like
right. And
I do recall
physics
that.
at all.
You know what's interesting about this game is so far from what I've seen, there's like no points. There's like nothing. It just seems like you just ride and you ride forever and do flips. And I don't think that there's anything to win or lose. So if you're just trying to kill some time and get like a visual, I don't know, seizure, I guess. There's a lot of colors in this game. So I'm not really sure. This next game that I want to talk about is pretty interesting. Now, it's been around for a little bit, but not a lot of people know about it, and I don't even know if you could really call it a game. It's called Panoramical, and Panoramical, it's basically not so much a game, but it allows you to manipulate the look of whatever you're looking at. I don't know. Right now, it's kind of just showing like some balls on a screen. But some of the landscapes can get pretty crazy and trippy looking. And then you kind of control them. And while you're controlling them, it also changes the sound that you're dealing with. It's supposed to be kind of a relaxing game, as well as, you know, a lot of the reviews that I read on this game, people were like, I just want this as my screensaver. I just want to build a weird noise looking object and then just have it sit there forever. But I know that Dame dabbles in a little bit of music. What do you think about this?
I like that. I really like the idea. I mean, especially if the way that you kind of manipulate the shapes and the colors changes the atmosphere of the soundscape. I mean, man, I'm all for that. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. It strikes me as one of those games that you wouldn't really necessarily call a game. It's more of an experience, and that looks really cool. In some respects, there's been a few games over maybe the last 5 years or so that have kind of really gone for that sort of experience, rather than that you just lets you just chill and create, maybe even create, explore, that sort of idea, rather than just go ahead and bash stuff in the face or have a seizure.
Well,
but you can create while having a seizure.
Yeah.
Yes.
And well, you know, a lot of those games, we've seen a lot of those in the VR space, because that's kind of a lot of what you can do is just, you know, you're creating or experiencing more than actually like playing something. So in that vein, I think that, you know, I think Panoramical really is for those kind of people who may not be gamers necessarily, but they're really into, you know, maybe building something or toying around with like an oral aesthetica kind of game. That's kind of how I perceived it. It's kind of like something visual and oral that you can mess with, but it's an experience, like, you know, Ed was saying.
Pronunciation, my friend.
Yeah.
Oral.
Well, you know what? That's kind of funny, because we're getting into the general no,
I was
we're saving that for the end.
Oh.
I wasn't gonna. That's not the segue that I wanted to do. So another game that I do want to talk about, though, and this game I hope you guys have a lot to talk about, because it's Super Hot. Which is a game that we've talked about on the show a few times. And the cool thing about this game is that it's an amazing game. It's a different take on like the first person shooter. I guess you can count it as a shooter vibe. Have you guys actually played this game at all?
I have not, but
Yes.
I've watched a bunch of stuff on it.
In fairness, if you've watched it, you pretty much experienced all there is to it. But it really plays with your sense of time and your perception of what kind of reality is, and it's really cool in that respect. I mean, you can end up feeling like a total badass when you manipulate time, turn around and kind of plan what you're gonna do. So you back, forward, back, decide, right, that guy gonna punch him in the head, and I'm gonna turn around and grab this gun, and then I'm gonna go this way, and then you just play it all out. It's almost tactical, but at the same time, if you've had a few too many coffees, it could completely screw with your perception of reality.
And that's kind of what this day is about. So the cool thing about this, like you mentioned, is that you're controlling time. Now, time doesn't completely stop. It kind of goes slow whenever you're standing still, speeds up whenever you're going normal speed. And, you know, at first it was a little tough to get the hang of it, because you have to take into consideration that a lot of times there's things that are completely around you. I mean, there's a guy in front of you, there's, you know, people behind you. So you just kind of have to, you know, take a map of like everything that's going on and plan for it. But yeah, once you really get started on Super Hot, you really do come off as a badass. I mean, you're just like hitting stuff, you're going around grabbing guns and pulling swords out of walls. Now, a really interesting thing about Super Hot is that on their website, you can play it in the browser. You can actually play Super Hot. I think it's only like the first couple levels or something like that. But if you want to know if this game's for you, check it out on their website, which is, do we have it somewhere? I don't know if I actually put it on there.
It is superhotgame.com/play-prototype.
There we go. That's the actual prototype. When you put in that URL, you're going to go to the exact area you need to be to play the game. So it's really cool. I think everyone should at least check it out to see what it's like. It is kind of trippy if you like games that mess with time, and I know I do. You know, I know that Dame's kind of been a fan of the first-person genre a little bit lately because, you know, the Destiny dollars that you got for Destiny 2, and then, you know, you've been
gotta keep
playing
that cash
Far Cry.
flowing.
Yeah. So
Indeed. Indeed. I'm going to have to check it out.
yeah, definitely do. So that next time we talk about it, you can tell us a little bit about your experiences. So this game I actually need to get some information on, and I guess Ed's going to be the one who's going to give it to me, and that sounds wrong. But genital jousting.
Well, as in context. Go ahead, sir.
Genital jousting is a game that I guess you can consider it kind of trippy. It's a little weird, and we have a picture here of it. So if you're listening on the podcast, you can join in and see what it's all
Also,
about.
if you're listening on the podcast, you're probably not missing anything right now.
You're absolutely not. It's a very censored pic, which is great. So Ed, tell us about this, because you actually reviewed this game.
I had the distinct pleasure of reviewing this game. This is the sort of game that will take you on a different sort of trip. The sort of trip that when you load it up, you go, no. Wait a minute. No. Wait, what? No! It's a spiraling descent into madness that happens. Genital jousting is it was at one point a cute party physics game, then it became an RPG. Published by Devolver Digital, and it's had ridiculously good reviews on Steam. It is based around the concept that you and everyone you know are a penis and pair of testicles anthropomorphized into a janky physics world. It has the weirdest single-player roleplay concept I've ever seen. And
So as you level up, do you grow?
You do when you level up. You
elongate. Is that what we're saying here? Is it kind of like the whole snake thing where you go around, you eat apples, and you get longer? I mean, Snake was my jam back on the old phones, so I know a little bit about elongation.
Well, the only way to really distinctly elongate is to insert yourself up the anal cavity of another person.
Okay, all right. Well,
what can I say?
I'm glad that we're using the correct terminology, at least. So, the weirdest thing that I would say about this game as I was researching it, aside from it pulling up a lot of images of crazy things that didn't have anything to do specifically with the game, is that I saw a lot of pictures of these phallic objects dressed in very weird costumes, in very weird settings. So it seems like you're kind of personifying these...
yeah, you're absolutely anthropomorphizing these things and basically making them. Yeah, it's the sort of game that, like I said, if you've had a few too many, you just won't be quite sure if you're what's going on. It's
something tells me that this is like the first step to acknowledging that you just made a lot of really bad mistakes.
It is the morning after mistake that you probably don't want.
So in other words, it's like one of those things where you drink too much one night, you buy the game, you play it and have a good laugh, and then the next morning you're kind of stuck with it in your Steam library or whatever. And then
there
you're just
are consequences to doing drugs, kids.
One of these games just doesn't belong here.
Well, but that's the worst part.
And no matter how long you sit in the bottom of the shower, that shame is not going away.
It's going to be on your Steam. Can you even delete a game from your Steam list? I have never tried.
I don't know.
You can.
For me, if it was a situation where I bought it one night as a bad idea, the next day I would probably give it an honest go. Like, I must have been thinking something whenever I bought this game. So I'm going to give it the old college try and just try and make the best of it. Whenever I saw those two penises at a picnic, I was like, this could be a nice game, but you know, that's
You know, they were giving it the old college try when they made this game.
maybe.
Okay, so I don't want to. I really don't want to explore this.
You don't want to go into a dark place.
No, I don't want to go into a. I don't want to go into a dark place here.
Don't
but
play the
like,
game.
I just. No, I'm not going to. But when you say that there are RP mechanics with this, like I'm just like I'm picturing like the skill tree for like what would be involved in something like this, and we're not gonna entertain that thought any further. So it's spoken, it's out there. We'll leave you to the creative thinking there.
Well, let's leave it at genital jousting on Steam. For those interested, check it out. And you know, there's an amazing review about it on GameSpace.com by Ed, and you know it's going to be good because Ed. You know, how would we define you, Ed? I mean, you deal in the weird games. You deal in the obscene. What is it that you would be considered? I mean,
I'll play any crap.
That's good. That's good enough.
Or possibly our weeboo expert. I don't know. One of the two. Both.
Yeah.
Hence, I'll play any crap.
And that's pretty much why we send you any crap. And then, of course, we always have Bowman as a backup. So the last game on our list we have is Incel VR. Now, this is an amazing game that I played a while back. It's a VR game, but it's like a cell phone VR. You can put it into a Google Cardboard, and it'll still work. You can pretty much get it anywhere. And I know, like, a while back, even McDonald's was like, buy a Happy Meal, and you could turn it into a little headset. So I don't know if they're still doing that. But if you don't have a headset, just go to McDonald's and buy a Happy Meal. And
nothing to do with VR. Just
just go.
Happy Meal.
Just so you'll make yourself happier.
We're talking about drugs anyway, you know.
Yeah.
So
Hashtag not sponsored.
Yeah, and
hashtag please sponsor us. No.
So we're playing a little video of it, but I've tried it on Cell VR. I've tried it on on Steam VR. It's also a game you can get it on Steam. Pretty much anywhere that they have VR, you can find this game, and it's really crazy. It's like a racing game mixed with like an action game. But the thing is as you start progressing through the levels, you're like zipping around in kind of like a 360 degree manner. Things are zooming by your face. I mean, it is crazy trippy, and it's probably one of the few games that I physically got sick in several times. Just is that?
Ooh.
It's the net. Where's Bob from Reboot?
Yeah, basically. I mean, is that an endorsement to say that it is one of the few games that I got sick in? I don't know. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I'm not sure. It very much felt like a roller
never
coaster.
tried VR.
It definitely changed your world.
It did. It did. And the premise is that you're inside of a human cell trying to destroy viruses. So, I mean, if... Go ahead.
Very Reboot-ish.
Yeah. I mean, from having just looked at it, it looks a lot like... It actually looks surprisingly similar to another VR racing game called Radial G. It's been around for a little while, just with a different sort of aesthetic. Whereas Radial G is more of a game that you play on like Vive or Oculus. This is more of a... But this certainly is a much trippier look to it, but mechanically it looks distinctly similar to that, and I loved Radial G, but this is certainly a slightly trippier experience, to say the least.
Oh yeah, it is very much so a very trippy experience. So I would say check out Incel VR if you've ever been curious about VR games, and if you're just like feeling great and you're like, man, I gotta make myself sick quick. Just pop that in a VR player and just go at it. It'll grow on you eventually if you just keep at it and don't mind the vomiting. Just keep going, and then eventually it'll just become second nature to you. That's how I felt about it anyway. So let's move on to the news, because we got a lot of news to talk about. Maybe too much news, because Ed, you were at Rezzed last week, and Rezzed, it's a game show. Is that is that a good way to describe it?
what is this thing in the old world? They have electricity, video games. What?
You're the next contestant on Rezzed.
EGX, yeah, that's all right. We do our research here. No, make Ed do it. So EGX Rezzed is London's kind of big. It's big indie gaming festival. It's probably the UK's first gaming festival of the year, and it's roughly equivalent to PAX East or South in terms of its content. So it's mostly focused on indie games. It's become kind of a staple of probably, I would say, European gaming calendar in terms of its popularity. It's a 3D event, similar again to something like PAX East, but it's pretty much purely indie games with the occasional big AAA hitter, which helps to bring people in. So I think we've got some articles from it here, and it's probably not worth me going into what's there because I believe that you had a few things that I was looking at there, so I can either run with them or you can go through.
We're gonna run with everything that we got so far, but I wanted to start with something that's important because you were saying that it's mostly indie games, but from what I see, Shaq Fu is there, and how could that be an indie game? I mean, Shaq is larger than life, so maybe we can start a little bit about
because you don't want to pitch too hard after your last game was so terrible.
What is this about Shaq Fu being terrible?
Well, the original was awesome. I mean, if you compare it to
other terrible games.
Other terrible games. But so Shaq Fu, A Legend Reborn is the sequel, let's call it. It's certainly the spiritual sequel to the original Shaq Fu fighting game, which, as we all know, was quickly dispensed into bargain basement bins in GameStops around the world, or at least in America. I don't even know if it managed to land on UK shores at all. We turned it back at the port, I believe.
Good for you.
Shaq Fu A Legend Reborn is a side-scrolling 2.5D beat 'em up featuring the legend himself, and it is amazing that a man so large with so many fighting skills can continue to beat up so many weird and wonderful things with his tongue so far in cheek, because frankly basically it's good fun. It's a very stylized aesthetic, and it's got a very irreverent humor. The man is not afraid to take the piss out of himself, and he's voice acted the whole thing. It's not a world-changing game. It will not redefine your life, but it is a really good laugh, and for a US audience, you'll get a lot more out of it than I did. I mean, I got some of the references, but there's little in-jokes all over the place that apparently have the US press howling with laughter, and I'm like, I get that one. That's pretty cool.
You know, that reference.
But what I don't understand is, were they even at PAX East, or did they just go straight? Because that was like was it the same week, or is the week after?
So EGX Rezzed falls the week after PAX East, which for games developers and PR staff is hell. But we got to see the personal fallout from PAX East, and it was usually, let's say, it's a gauntlet of Gamescom related viruses that we've got to run when we do EGX Rezzed for you. But yeah, they were at PAX East. Our roving reporters at PAX East, unfortunately, were way too busy to be able to stop by the booth, so thankfully I do the cleanup. Yes, that's right. EGX Rezzed essentially to GameSpace is what they couldn't be arsed to do, and I get to. Thanks, Bill.
Yeah, you're the cleaner. Yes. Oh, high five to Dame. You know, the weird thing about Shaq Fu in general is, you know, like you said, it was critically panned, and it was. I don't even think they bothered to put it in the bargain box. I think they were just like, hey, this goes directly in the trash. Kind of like the ET game.
I was about to say, like, it's in the dump somewhere next to ET.
Yeah. But
hey, they dug those games up.
I saw that. I watched
that video.
Yes. But to its benefit, ET was, resurrected quite literally.
But you know, Shaq Fu, it wasn't very good, and I don't know why they decided that they wanted to make a sequel or bring it back. Maybe Shaq was at home one day and said, you know, I can't have this, you know, besmirching my good name, and so then he decided to put another game together. And you know what? The problem is that it is an actually nice looking title. Like, the graphics were pretty good. The gameplay looked pretty great. I don't know how I would feel about stepping into Shaq's shoes again. They're pretty
the same
big
way
shoes.
He felt
but,
doing Steel.
yeah, kind of. I mean, that guy's just had a rough go of it, entertainment-wise. But
I think the only thing I saw he was good in was Kazam. I love Kazam.
But I think that at a certain point in time, though, like when you've had that many blunders, like you have to be okay with goofing on yourself, right? And so
it's the only way to go. Yeah,
it really is. Like that's like 90% of the why I am the way that I am. But I think that like with something like Shaq Fu, like. And I was watching a trailer for it the other day, and it does look absolutely hilarious. But I think that we're in a time where like self-debasing humor is a little bit wider accepted, and so I think that like for somebody like Shaq that's had so many blunders, that it's actually quite endearing to see that this guy, you know, is able to, you know, able to have a laugh at his own expense and his own failures.
Yeah,
absolutely. And frankly, that is very much where the game goes with its own humor. It is, the writing for it is very much, it's kind of like South Park light. It's very irreverent, very quick to take the piss out itself. It doesn't really particularly hold back. Doesn't drop any F-bombs or anything, but it's very kind of similar to that sort of writing style, and it's very endearing. It's very fun. It's like I said, it's not particularly going to change your world, but it's a good laugh, and it's a solid brawler.
Yeah, it looks like it. So tell us a little bit about is it Phogs? Phogs?
Yes, from genital jousting to something that you might mistake for something similar. It is, how to describe Phogs. Phogs is, if you've ever watched the 1990s cartoon Cat Dog from Nickelodeon,
yes,
yes, then this will be on point for you. Phogs is a visually similar, I'd say, style to something like genital jousting, but instead of a phallic role-playing game, you have a double-ended dog puzzler. It takes inspiration from everything from Mario World 3D through to a little bit of Hokum and numerous other puzzler games. It plays best when it's played as a co-op game where players take control of one end of each dog. It's as it wriggles around 3 different worlds, one of each themed on eat, play, and sleep, based on what a dog does. Apparently, poop wasn't acceptable for a game. And you essentially go around the world with your compatriot. You can play solo as well and solve a number of environmental puzzles. The physical mechanics of it are relatively simple, but the puzzles are short, well-paced, and fairly ingenious. And it's just really, it's as kind of, how did I describe it? It's about as deliriously hyperactive as a Cocker Spaniel. It's just bright and bold and out there, and it's really ingenious. And it's again a really decent little indie game. I'm certainly going to play it when it comes out.
Oh yeah, you will. You kind of have no choice but to play it whenever it comes out. It's in your wheelhouse. So
it pretty much is, yeah.
But the worst part about it, I would say, like, is that you made so many comparisons to genital jousting that, like, it's like a 1-for-1 comparison. Like, if you enjoyed this game, you would like to play, and it's so just like on the completely opposite end of the spectrum. In a game with a dog with 2 heads that, you know, has no genitalia at all, and then a game just full of genitalia. I mean, it's just like completely different.
Here comes a side-by-side comparison. I can see it now.
What? Oh dear. This is going to be a new rating system for Game Space that Bill's not going to be happy about.
Everything
we just went from 0 to 10 to rated X.
Yeah.
Now watch like every one of Ed's reviews from here on out is compares to.
That's like a whole new. That's like a whole new website, and that would be one that I would visit quite frequently. As weird as that is to say, that makes me sound like some kind of weird person. But
creeper.
Oh dear! If it gets traffic. No, wait, we are not in. Nope.
So
I don't have candy.
We're kind of running out of time in the news section, and we still got a lot of news to do. But I want to hit a couple of these other ones real quick. So Another Sight. Tell us a little bit about that one.
So Another Sight is a game that I came across sitting in the Unreal room. Rez has a room that's dedicated to games that are built in Unreal, and it is one of the few games that didn't have its own logo plastered across a billboard, and that you can understand why once you actually sit down and play the game. Instead of plastering a big logo across it, they just they use the space in their booth to show the artwork to the game, and it is an absolutely gorgeous game. The aesthetic in it really is. So Another Sight is it's a platform puzzler that's based around a lot of different themes, but it takes inspiration from things like Neil Gaiman's Neverwhere, and it's set in Victorian London, where a girl goes through an accident and falls into the London Underground, let's say, and from there it spirals from an underground setting by the London Tube Network into a descent into a Neverwhere-style fantasy world as she continues on the journey. The crux of this, though, is that she loses her sight in the accident. When she does that, what it does is then pairs her with a cat companion and splits the game off into almost two different games that dovetail into each other. The world that Kip, the girl, experiences is influenced heavily by things like a kind of Monet-style artistic impression, and it's very watercolor-esque, and it's almost contained within a very small bubble of the world that she can hear, and it expresses that visual style through what she can hear. And then her cat companion, which you can split your game between her and her cat companion called Hodge, allows Hodge to be kind of her eyes, and cool. it delineates the game between those two physical worlds, the way you see it, and the puzzles that they create. It's a really inventive way of doing it, and the whole thing, as you start to go through it, spirals off into steampunk worlds, fantasy gardens, more darker aesthetics that it steals from Neverwhere. It is a game that's hard to describe in just a few words, but the puzzles are not game changing, but it's a really nice way of introducing them by splitting the puzzles up into two different characters that can do different things. Yeah. But the aesthetic is the thing that really sold it to me. It is just gorgeous, and frankly, it really deserves a look when it comes out.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the cool things about indie games is they always kind of have these cool ideas, and we noticed in this past year that some of the indie games can come out with some visuals that are just like insane. I mean, Cuphead was by far like one of the most beautiful games I've ever seen. And then so we've just got a couple more minutes to finish out on this portion of the news, and then we got a few things left over that we want to talk about. But Lost Ember and Strange Brigade, those are two games. Maybe you want to pick one of those and tell us which one you're really watching there, Ed.
Oh, okay. Well, that has to be right. I'll be quick on both of them, right?
Okay.
So
quick.
Lost Ember is an exploration game. Again, built in Unreal. It's from a studio called Mooneye in Central Europe. They are we've been watching this. Well, I've been watching this since Gamescom 2016. Basically, you inhabit an animal spirit. You can switch between different animals. It doesn't tell a lot of it tells a little bit of story through a standard narrative kind of voiceover style, but mostly the story is told through exploration. It's gorgeous. It's been getting. You sit down and it's very much like kind of rhyme sort of vibes. It's a lot of exploration. There's not necessarily a lot of directed play. Massive worlds to explore. Looks gorgeous. Take a look at it. Strange Brigade comes from Rebellion, and it kind of almost jumps on the same sort of bandwagon that we've been seeing with games like Vermintide 2 that have taken co-op sort of, let's call them shooter style games that Left 4 Dead mastered way back in the day, and giving them a new twist. This one, the twist for it is it's a tongue-in-cheek sort of game that's based around a group of supernatural explorers, let's call them, based around the end of the British Empire, and the theme is super tongue-in-cheek, pathy news, B-movie sort of thing that opens with a sort of pathy-esque news. What? This is the British Empire. We're going to explore. A sort of.
That was very good.
I'm
Half
England. Apparently, I can do that.
Jones.
Yes, very much a little bit like that. And it balances combat really well. It's a nice hero shooter in that respect. But it's the themes, the styles. It really sets it apart. It's still, the combat has that sort of cathartic chaos that Vermintide 2 still has in a shooter, but it manages to hit those mechanics really well, and the quality of what Rebellion can do really speaks volumes. But it really manages to just give it a new sort of twist and theme that is just fun, basically. When you're facing down armored mummies and a gigantic minotaur while you're blasting them to hell with a shotgun, and your characters are shouting at each other in this sort of 1930s B-movie style. It's just a lot of fun.
It looks great. So on to some other little quick tidbits of news before we get into the plugs. So, Dame, last week,
yes, sir,
you and I, we were kind of musing a little bit about that Division film. We were, and we decided that it was just the Amazon version is all we were going to get, but we were wrong, sir.
What?
I know, right?
That's correct.
So they will be coming out with a Division film helmed by the director of Deadpool 2, and I don't know. How do you feel about that? How did you feel? Did you ever actually check out the Amazon episodes, or did you not get a chance yet?
I did not get a chance to check out the Amazon episodes.
Did you check out the Amazon Far Cry 5 show?
I got to see that before it was released. So yes,
like you and Ed,
so good.
Spoilers.
Just like, you guys are always like ahead of the game whenever it comes to stuff.
I just wasn't allowed to talk about it, right?
NDA, man, NDA, like,
right. NDAs are scary.
It's almost like you think that video game adaptations aren't worth people's time.
Yeah.
Who knew?
So, what do you guys think? Are you going to check out this this film of The Division, or are you going to wait to see trailers before you even care about it?
Straight to video.
I guess my take is that I mean, I would probably want to play The Division first to actually know what I was getting myself into.
Yeah,
lots of Dark Zone griefing.
Honestly, The Division's not that narratively heavy anyway, and that's why I said in the news post we put up about it, it's probably going to be a good thing that it's not that narratively heavy, because certain games, let's go with, say, Tomb Raider, the first set of Tomb Raiders, for an example.
Oh, yeah.
You just try and follow a narrative. You don't end up telling your own story or building your own world. You're better to reinterpret this sort of thing when you're working with an existing IP. And the directorial change is interesting because it signals a change of direction for the film. The previous director had things like Syriana in his portfolio. Games that were a lot more, films that were a lot more narratively heavy, let's say. Whereas you're looking at a director that has gone for Deadpool, Atomic Blonde. Neither one of them are going to be particularly deep, and they're very much going to be focused on action.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it kind of depends. We'll see how Deadpool 2 turns out. But the first Deadpool, I wouldn't say was...
Let's put this out there. Let's just take a note right there. You're inferring that Deadpool 2 is going to be narratively deep.
I think it kind of has to have some... I mean, aside from like the hilarious one-liners, it's got to have some sort of narrative. They're bringing in a lot of new characters, and you can't just like throw characters in willy-nilly. Well, I mean, they kind of did a little bit, but...
I was gonna say something's gonna be narratively deep in that movie.
But The Division itself was a game that did have, it wasn't like it was like an underlining narrative that you kind of went through the game, and then you saw like, oh, this happened in this situation, all those kind of things. I mean, you spent some time playing it, Bowman. What do you think? Do you think they're going to try and like stay along the lines of some of these little stories of what happened, or? I mean,
I haven't heard too much about the movie, so I can't say a whole lot. I just know that if they want to make it a good movie, they better not do half the stuff they did at launch.
Well, they're not going to throw people in the movie theater into the dark zone and make them fight over loot. So I think you're safe there, buddy.
Just popcorn.
Yeah.
It's fine.
You know
they're
what?
Not going to
it
be
would
releasing...
be terrible though if they did that in the movie. Just like there's a sign that says dark zone.
It's kind of dark.
It's fine. Like, they're not going to be releasing patches, 3 months after it comes out. Come back, fix this scene.
That's what they do. That's what they do for Star Wars. But sorry, I'm not gonna get into that with Bowman here.
That's a couple shows from now.
Yeah, that is a couple shows from now.
No, you want to talk about patching a movie and stuff like that? Well, what was it, last week or 2 weeks ago, where we had that big giant windstorm? I had just been laid off from work. Me and my son decided, let's go watch a movie. So we go to watch Ready Player One. Don't you know the climax of the movie? The power goes off.
Really?
We're like,
so you never know. You never knew what happened at the end. You want me to spoil it?
50 minutes later, the power is back on, and we were watching.
You sat in the theater for 50 minutes.
You could hear the theater. Everyone was like, and then it went out. And everyone was like, what?
Like,
the
don't worry, everybody. It's just server maintenance. It's just server maintenance. Right. It'll be back online here in a couple.
I was like, that is the best way to leave a cliffhanger. Episode 2 comes up 2 years from now.
So we got maybe about 10-15 minutes left on this one, and I wanted to touch this really quickly because we got a couple people here who might know a thing or two, especially since Bowman kind of delved into this a little bit, and because we've got someone international here. So in the Netherlands, it was deemed that some loot box mechanics will be illegal without a license. And games that are going to be affected are games like Rocket League, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, PUBG, FIFA 18, and Dota 2. They are all on the list. So what they determined was that in mid-June, by mid-June, they're going to make adjustments, or the game companies will have to make adjustments to loot boxes to take out addiction-sensitive components, such as almost winning effects, visual effects, and or the ability to repeatedly open loot boxes in a short period of time. If they do not, then they will have to get a gambling license to stay open. So what do you guys think? Bowman, you wrote the article, so let's pass it to you real quick. What do you got?
Yeah, I am supposed to write the article.
Oh, you didn't write it?
You just did it for me.
Oh, good.
I've been a little behind, so thanks for writing the article for me. I need to listen to this part of the podcast.
Yeah, put that on there. So you were supposed to write the article, but you kind of got the news and you did the research, eh? So what's going on? What do you think about it? Nothing? Fine.
I'm gonna go ahead and pick up the fumble here.
You're putting me on the spot because when I was supposed to do the news article, I was knee deep in American art history essays. So, I mean, as far as them having to get like a gaming license and stuff like that, I mean, it sounds kind of crazy. I mean, especially if most of these games just have cosmetic stuff, like PUBG especially. They've got the cosmetics for the guns now. They've got the clothing and everything, but I mean, The only thing you really buy for that game is keys, which are a couple bucks a piece, which you're not buying the crates, you're buying the keys to get into the crates. So
That's kind of the same
I think that's
thing,
a little bit shadier.
So
yeah.
So the crux of this issue is that the reason that this decision has been determined by the Netherlands or Netherlands authorities is because a small proportion of loot boxes that they looked into could be considered gambling. And that was down to the fact that a proportion of items that could be selected from these loot boxes could be traded for real world money.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So there was a facility for some of these to be traded for real world cash. Whether they determined that as legitimate ways that were supported by the developers, or whether that was third party or grey sites, I actually haven't had a chance to look into, because I only started reading on this today.
Right.
What's interesting is how the games companies are going to go ahead and approach that. Obviously, if it's grey part, you've got the majority of games companies who have been tested for this, who their loot boxes aren't determined as being gambling or illegal. So where it becomes interesting is two respects. Firstly, there's the how they're going to react, because are they going to go ahead and get a gambling license, or are they just going to modify their systems so that it becomes more difficult? Which one is the path of least resistance?
I mean, that's tough. Yeah, I mean, how do you even really determine that? You know?
Well, it's most likely going to be the same sort of reaction that Blizzard had when China decided that they had to show, they had to make some changes for their loot boxes. They shifted, they shifted it so you bought gold and you got free loot boxes rather than selling loot boxes. They made a minor administrative change, and that would actually circumvent the issue that you have in the Netherlands, is if you buy a currency or buy an item that's in-game only and get free loot boxes with it, then the loot boxes technically have no intrinsic value because you're not the loot box. If you get instead sold at 3, it's that sort of thing which will probably be the easiest thing for them to do. If they buy into the gambling system where they have to go ahead and buy a gambling license, that opens up a bigger can of worms in terms of cross-border jurisdiction. Europe is, for those of you that are watching who are not in Europe, which is pretty much everyone, I'm guessing, it is a cross-border clusterfuck of legislative problems. Be it anything from administering information, GDPR, which is nothing. Well, actually, it is something to do with video gaming, but you don't want to get into that.
We don't.
To monetary issues, to having even buying a mobile phone contract for, say, a games company that has, just an example, a games company that has offices across the US can buy one mobile phone contract. A games company that has offices across Europe has 12 different mobile phone contracts, just as an example of how that difference sits ridiculous. There. And that one country could have a knockover effect across the rest of the world because they'll set that precedent. So bearing that in mind, which is the path of least resistance? Probably let's just sidestep this issue and weasel out of actually facing the problem.
We don't even know if that's going to be possible, because like Bowman was saying, people are buying keys to open loot boxes. It's kind of the same thing. The keys have the value, you know. But what were you going to say, Dame? You said it seemed like you were getting pretty riled up there about this issue.
No, I think that we covered everything that was relevant to cover with this. So I'm just going to go ahead.
He's gracefully bowing out.
Yeah, I'm going to pass for time.
Yeah. You know, whether or not this happens worldwide, and, you know, like Ed was saying, most people that are listening, I would say they are not only in the US, because our podcast is worldwide. We have people in Japan. We have people in the Philippines, Swedish people everywhere. Well, not Swedish people everywhere. Usually they're in Sweden, but you know what I mean. So the last little bit of our show, we've got about 7 minutes or so, is plugs. And let's pass this on over to Dame. What do you got to plug this week?
I've got a review that just went up on GameSpace for a game called Vandals that came from an indie dev out of France. It is kind of an interesting puzzler, kind of in a similar vein as Hitman Go. where you have like a certain number of moves to get across the map. But the interesting thing about Vandals is that it has a graffiti mechanic on it, where you get to tag a certain location in the map and you draw the graffiti. So it's kind of like playing a little bit with MS Paint in a video game. But the other neat feature about it too is that like it throughout some of the maps there are items that you can find that share a little bit of history of graffiti artists and stuff like that. So it's kind of this really interesting, like, one part game, one part creative expression, one part art history. So it's just kind of this random grab bag of games. So got the review for that up on GameSpace. And I just started tearing into a game today called A Robot Named Fight. That I am reviewing on the Nintendo Switch. So that review will be up maybe shortly. Maybe shortly.
We could only hope. But you forgot the most important thing about what you're supposed to be plugging, Dame.
I did.
You gotta talk about Roll the Level.
I can't talk about Roll of the Level. Yes, my personal podcast. Well, it's not just my personal podcast, but myself and another writer, Matt Keith, for GameSpace and MMORPG, and our buddy Sarah. We have a podcast that we are entering our 4th season in. That's a running podcast about life, God, and video games in no particular order. And so we're going to be starting up season 4 this week. So pretty stoked about that.
Awesome.
Nice.
Well, I'm going to try and put those in order one day because you always say no particular order. I'm going to try and order them and see how that goes.
You can try.
So Bowman, you got some glasses on right now, but what else are you working on aside from playing with those new glasses you bought?
Yeah, so I've got these HyperX glasses that, yes, I paid out of pocket for. Everybody who thinks we get everything. I'm going to do a review on these because I said I wanted to do a review on them. They are actually helping a little bit. I've noticed my headaches have gone down with all the light problems that I have. I am working on, Ed was nice enough to get the devs over at, for Robocraft Infinity, to get me the initial beta key for first impressions, and now I have the full version that I'm going to be doing a review for this weekend. So that's pretty good. Love building stuff in there. I actually modeled a half-assed Millennium Falcon. It didn't fly. I wasn't far enough along. I had the hover propellers. I didn't have the actual flying propellers, so it kind of hovered along the ground there.
You'll get there.
I'm going to be seeing the PR guy for that tomorrow morning for coffee, or this morning. Hold on, like 6 or 7 hours. So have you got a single line quote that I can give him for it?
This game is freaking awesome.
That'll do.
That'll do, pig. That'll do.
And I've actually Ed got me a key too. I've been playing around in it. I had this weird idea for this big crazy ball looking thing, and it's taking me a very 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 long time to create
a ball with those laser things on them.
Laser balls, which all goes back to general jousting, but laser balls. And so so what else you got going on? You've got a new stream that you guys got going on, isn't it? Right after this show, right. Usually on Fridays.
So actually, it was supposed to be before this show, from 8 to 10 Eastern on Friday nights. But because me and our favorite hardware editor, Chris, or Game by Night, we are streaming for a company called Colorful, who are based out of Taiwan. So we're streaming from 10 p.m. to midnight now, because that's 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. for them. So We're getting all their midday people over there, prime time. So last Friday we streamed PUBG, of course. That was their decision. They said, you guys can stream PUBG. So we streamed. We had at the high point, we had like 30 people watching our stream at one time.
And you'd like to get more, I'm guessing.
It's been a week. We've had over 3,000 views on the video. And they told us that we reached about 10,000 people potentially, based on people watching multiple.
That's what we like to hear. So it's every other week.
Every
pretty
other
much?
Friday. So this next week we will not be on this show, unfortunately. But we will be streaming that through their Facebook page. I do not have the link readily available, but if you search
That's okay.
Colorful HQ on Facebook, you'll most likely pull it up, and we'll probably put we put Twitter, you know.
Periscope.
We
all
put
that kind of
tweets
stuff.
out last week. We
Tweets,
did the Facebook
Twittering,
messages.
bird
Yep.
calls.
And then me and Chris have been talking about it. So after this next one, because we're doing PUBG again for the next one, we're going to do Fortnite probably for the next 2 Fridays. For
So
next
competing
month.
games.
Yep. And then
Just-
we're probably going to do an MMO for the month after.
Awesome.
We were thinking maybe like Final Fantasy or maybe World of Tanks or something.
So we got about 5 minutes or so. Ed, what do you got going on? You got a lot going on, but...
All of the things,
Right.
all of the reading, all of the things. I have a bag, all of the keys. I'm just, yeah. So right now I'm currently playing a Switch game called Football Manager,
Ooh.
Soccer Manager. For all you
Poor guy.
heathens.
Hey, I'm with you on that one, Ed. I'm with you on that one.
Good, thank you, because you're right.
not.
Then.
I'm going
You're
directly
wrong.
against you.
That's fine. That's fine. The rest of the world knows you're wrong. It's
Yeah.
fine. And I'm currently playing that at the moment. The review will be out as soon as I can get far enough into a season where I get demoted, and then we'll get a review done for that. So that's interesting. I'm also just starting our review for Jesse Cox's new RPG, Monster Prom, which has been which I called dibs on as soon as that one hit social media. I've been waiting for that. That's
Yep.
going to be awesome. So find out who I go to the prom with when that review comes out later on this month. I've currently got a few more pieces from Rezzed coming out. I've literally got a couple of things to email over. And assuming that Russia doesn't ban any more IPs, I should be free of any more news articles on MMORPG for at least a few more days.
Excellent.
Maybe a few hours.
I gotta say personally, I haven't been following this, but it interests me probably more than anything else. I want to find out who you're taking to Monster Prom. I need to know. You've actually been talking about this game for a long time, and at this point, if I don't find out, I can't go on. I need to know.
I believe I have been waiting for it for quite a while. I believed I used a threat of violence against someone in the team chat that said they might want to play it instead.
Okay. Well, I'm excited about that. I'm excited about all those articles. But that's not it. You also have one more thing to talk about. Aren't you writing for a publication that no one else in the world can read but people in your area? You still doing that?
In my area, you mean Goshkia?
Yeah.
Because those
Talk
guys.
about
Oh,
it.
you just
Say
mean
it a
that
few
no one.
times.
You just mean that no one can pronounce it.
That's
except
true.
For me.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
I can't.
so-
I wouldn't
so-
be able to tell them what it is.
Ben will be disappointed. So, for any of you that don't know, Goshkia they're a US-based gaming community. Started many years ago, many years ago. And last time I checked, they were over 7,000. But based on their aggregate numbers, they're probably approaching the 10,000 mark now of players. We are talking. They have built a massive community, and about 3 or 4 years ago, they started kicking off a community-driven magazine, and we'll put the link in chat in a couple of moments. But the Goshkia magazine is a community-driven magazine, comes out every quarter. The big thing that I do for them is I cover a lot of getting competition here with MMORPG. I do a lot of Guild Wars 2 stuff for them, usually exclusive stuff that's coming out when the 11 World updates, when we get the new expansions coming out, things like that. But I do other bits and pieces for them as well. I've done some pieces on cryptocurrency and gaming, other things like that. Just random things that will interest me that when I have time and I'm not getting ready to go to the Monster Prom. But check out. But if you want to know what it is, it's called Goshkia, but it's not.
It's not phonetically
spelled like that.
Yeah,
It's
no one
not
can spell it.
The car.
It's spelled.
So what I'm gonna. So I'll spell it for anyone that's listening, but for anyone that's in chat, I'll put it in the Twitch chat. So it's spelled Gaishkia, That's the community site, and it's magazine.goshkia.com for anyone that's
Google
listening.
search.
But that's exactly. And you'll be able to go ahead and follow them, their social media, and read some of the stuff that they got on the magazine.
Sounds
You were rejected from posting that link, sir.
Yeah, you were. We'll get it out there. Last thing that we're going to need to plug, and I'm going to plug it because I'm the only one who can. We are approaching our 1,000 downloads on our podcast. We've been working hard at it, and you know what? We're blowing up. We've actually got a lot of fantastic shows coming out, and let me tell you, next week's show is going to be a big one. It's going to be probably the biggest show we've done thus far. We've been working alongside trying to get the City of Titans developers. They're creating a game, City of Titans. If you are a superhero fan, you're going to want to be there because they're going to be talking a little bit about their game and what's going to be coming out. Not to mention, it is also the Avengers of Infinity War weekend. So I'm going to be cosplaying. I don't know who else is going to be with me, but they might be cosplaying too. I don't know who I'm going to be yet, but it's going to be fantastic. And because we're hitting our 1,000 mark, we're going to be doing a giveaway next weekend too. So we're going to be doing a couple things. If you're listening on the podcast right now, don't worry about it. We are going to be giving things away during the stream. And then also I'm going to be doing a little secret giveaway on the actual podcast itself. So download next week's episode if you can't watch the stream, and maybe you'll be able to get that code that I'll be giving away. I'll be giving away a couple different codes over the course of the week, and I don't know what we're giving away yet, but it's going to be amazing, and it's going to be free, so you can't really argue with that.
The code is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
That's the same code I have on my luggage.
My
Yeah, I got you. No, I was there. I'm with you on that one. So definitely check out next week's show, and we have some other great shows coming up. So now is the perfect time to get into it. A lot of developers are going to be joining us. So hopefully you guys will be able to tune in for those. And that also kind of transitions into download the podcast, because we have a lot of past episodes. We have Ed on some, we have Bowman on some, we have Dame on some, and you know lately we've been getting some good words about Dame. So he's been a fan favorite, strangely enough. He's also been on a lot of episodes. And then I have personally been saying terrible things about Bowman, but he knows because I usually tell him about it. He
tells me to my face.
That's the best way, though.
Yeah, it's better.
Well,
yeah,
he tells me to my face through Skype, which is I don't have anything to go through the screen and go.
Not yet, anyways, but we're gonna get there. We got
I'm
some
working
games
on
going
it.
on.
We have the technology,
but we've kind of gone over a little bit of time. But I wanted to get it out there. Next week's stream is gonna be amazing. Check it out, and for everybody here. We would like to say thank you for joining us, and good evening. Bye.
Morning.